Plugin of the week is the Exponential Audio R4. The R4 is a plugin that comes from Exponential Audio. Michael Carnes has his fingerprints all over many of the digital reverbs, the hardware reverbs that were created in Lexicon during the time that he worked there. And he's taken this expertise and all this knowledge into an amazing set of reverb plugins that deal with everything from surround all the way down to mono. He has a deep understanding of reverb, how it works, and also a very strong understanding of vintage components and how many elements in those vintage components were left out due to CPU issues, processing power issues. Anyway, he's come out with a plugin here, the R4, which is the latest in his collection. You may be familiar with the Phoenix Verb or Nimbus, and this is the next evolution. So where Nimbus is like a very transparent and open reverb with an incredible amount of flexibility, the R4 deals a little bit more with, character. It takes a lot of those same ideas and the same features that were added from to the Nimbus onto the R4. So he brought those in, and now you're dealing with reverb that has a lot more, maybe a little more personality with the same openness. So you start to get into more vintage sounding or vintage style reverbs, although not particularly emulating any ones of them. The way that the plugin works, and the way I'm going to start here, is I'm going to start by hitting the plus sign here. And what this does is it opens up the windows. This will help for demonstration purposes and your ability to see what's going on. And what we have is a main display window here, so we'll see some of the parameters that we adjust. Now, this is a pretty broad and deep plugin, so I'm going to start with just a quick example here, just a little bit of audio. This is just the standard setup here, or the standard setting that comes up when you load up the plugin.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you.
So what we have is like a very, as you can hear, like a lot of like warmth and character in the reverb. So we're going to kind of go through a bunch of parameters. When you initially start, one of the things that he's added in over the course that's expanded from like the R2 and the Phoenix Verb is the ability to control the frequency response of the input signal. So as you come here, you have 3 sets of filters. The filter that will do the input signal, so you can actually EQ the signal going into the reverb. This is sometimes handy if you kind of want to roll off high frequencies if they're overexciting the reverb. Or you could leave it coming in full frequency if you like. You have the ability to EQ the early reflections, which define the space that you're working in, and you also have the ability to EQ the reverb itself. You get different filter types in terms of roll-offs, bandpass filters, etc., etc. So you can enable any of those or notch filters. So it gives you the ability to kind of warm up, top end, high end, etc. And you'll see that reflected in the input signal in white. In blue, you'll have the early reflections, and the reverb will be reflected in the red curve. And so you can apply the settings accordingly. Now, most of what happens here, or some of the main settings you can set here, is a wet-dry mix. This actually shows you, since I have it in a send-return configuration, so if I put it onto a track itself, then I could do a mix control here if I was putting it right on the track. One thing that you'll notice is that if I make a setting change, like if I change the reverb size, for example, here, you'll see that a little yellow light comes on here. That's indicating that you've made a change from the original setting. So we have some main parameters here. We have the wet-dry mix, the pre-delay time, so this is delay before the onset of reverb and early reflections, reverb time, right, so this will be the total reverb time, and then we have a trim, and this is just like an output trim that allows you to take the overall output signal level of reverb and early reflections and raise it or lower it if it's too loud or light. So this gives you that trim control. As you go through certain settings, some may be louder than others, etc., etc. So that's the basics of it there. When you get through the different working with the different things, and we'll kind of go through this one by one, you have a series of different menus here. You have the attack. So the attack is like how the reverb initially comes in. And so you control the length of that and the envelope of it and the slope, like the frequency response of it. You have control of the tail, the reverb tail, and the processing of that. So you have a bunch of different settings and dampening and width controls. Early reflections. So you can set up a variety of different early reflection characteristics. This is showing a vintage one with very few delays. So these are early reflections are the initial reflections that come off the floor, ceiling, and walls and bounce back to the source. And that defines the size of the space, or bounce to the listener, basically. So that would define the size of the space. And then the reverb is the continuation of those echoes into until they become so diffusive they become a separate thing. There's warp mode. The warp mode is actually really cool. It's not available with all parameters, so we'll kind of get into some of this, or we can enable it with the warp on, excuse me, here, so it doesn't show up in the initial preset. This gives you the ability to apply modulation and distortion, and also change the bit depth of a variety of different parameters throughout it. So mostly like to the reverb tail and stuff like that. You also have a chorus built in, so you can actually do a little modulation here with the different aspects of the reverb. We have a gate that's built in there, so you can apply a gate if you wanted to do like a standard kind of gated effect. And then you can kind of work from there. So most of the best way to kind of get around on this reverb is through presets. And this will give you like a really good starting point, and then we can kind of go through it. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. And one last mention, there's also a feature here, which is a freeze feature. And the freeze feature allows you to freeze a reverb at a particular point. So if you want to do that type of thing, like at the end of a song where, there's like some big explosion, but the reverb sort of goes on forever, you can do that type of thing. And then you can automate that to just flip on at that particular point and then eventually turn off. Or just let it go forever. I guess you could do that too. So let's dig right in. Where everything starts here is with the preset. So you could start with different keywords, and this gives you some of the main keywords that you would use for finding, like you're looking for a small, medium, large, you're looking for rooms, plates of different sizes, chambers, halls, etc. You can go to particular instruments, dynamic reverbs, percussive reverbs, etc., etc., vintage sounding reverbs. So you can kind of go to any particular, preset, or like you can think of these as sort of categories, and then from those categories would spill out a large number of presets. So if we were dealing with halls, then we would have a whole list of different hall programs. And so we could go down all the way through there. Now, you may not want to go through all of this, so you have a search engine. So for example, let's just say that we wanted to use a hall. We could type in the word hall, and then of course it would call up all of the hall programs. Oops, I think I accidentally clicked there. And we could go through here, but we may be going for a particular type of sound. So one of the other things I can do here, in addition to putting hall, is I can actually put a plus sign, and let's just say that I want like a dark hall or something. So I can type in DRK. And as you'll see, what happens is if we do that, then it'll show dark halls, and this will limit everything to one page. So you can see that that's limited, to there. You see a little DRK in parentheses. So, or we could focus this backward and say, all right, maybe not dark halls. We want to go with a small hall. And so we can search on that line, and now we could see, okay, here are the number of small halls, and we can kind of narrow it down to particular things. So let's do a search here, and let's start over again. And let's start with vocal. So let's see how many vocal presets come up, and so we have 456. And what I want to primarily do is do a hall. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, add a little plus sign. Now I can actually remove certain characteristics, like I don't want dark halls. I could say minus DRK, and that would remove dark as opposed to adding it. So now I have a particular type. So
slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop
So
for
now,
a
if I go
minute.
through the
Come
arrow
sit there
keys,
with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell
easy.
ya. You're scared I might fail ya, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong.
So what
Don't
I'm
you
doing is I'm
know you
hitting the arrow
can't
keys on my
keep
keyboard.
running from where you belong again? Oh yeah. And I'll find you again.
And
Pretend, oh yeah. And I'll find you again. No river too wide or mountain
if I
too
click on it,
high.
it'll
I won't let
load it up
goodbye be
automatically.
a final reply. Baby, we're far from the end. So come on, baby, let me help you believe in you and me, come what may. Yeah, 'cause I will stay
Let's
here
go to a
for as
vintage
long
hall.
as you need. Don't keep pushing away, 'cause the stories they tell ya are just meant to scare ya from being here with me where you belong. Tell me what would I do if robbed of your smile? So if you now tell me you're gone, remember the words in this song. When your feet can carry on, I'll carry you home, leaving again.
Okay,
I'll fight.
so you can see how we can go through a variety of different options. Let's see what I can.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell ya. You're scared I might fail ya, and so.
All right, let me pull back on the time here and see if this kind of works.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and
let me just look for one other one here. Let's see if I can find. It was one here that I was playing with before. That was kind of. Let's just see here. Maybe this was it.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute.
So what you can see here is a modulation that's kind of built in.
See you're afraid.
Maybe I'm going the wrong direction here. And instead of hall, let's just see what happens if we load up a plate and see what that shows up with. All right.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell ya. You're scared I might fail ya, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong again? Oh yeah. And I'll find you again.
Okay, so let's start with this plate and then start to kind of play with some of the parameters here and kind of move along. So one thing I can do obviously is I can set the reverb time. So we get the reverb time here. I can set the overall output level. I can create a little separation here between the voice.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
Right, creating a little separation from the voice and the reverb, so that can help to open up some of the articulation of the voice. Now let's play with some of the aspects of it here. I can adjust the attack of the reverb.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
right? So it kind of ramps up or goes a little bit slower. I can make it more aggressive.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and
I can
breathe.
also increase the
I
length of
can't
that,
hear what you're saying.
right? So this will give you a little bit more, push the reverb back a little bit more.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
So we can shape the way the onset of the reverb kind of occurs and how long of a period that takes.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me.
And so what that does is it allows me to at least kind of control the shape. Because of the busyness of the voice, I'm going to shorten it here to kind of help tailor that in. I can also set the amount of diffusion, right?
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe.
So I can make it a little
I
lighter
can't
sounding.
hear what you're saying.
You could also change the character of the diffusion.
Come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong.
And what that starts to do is it starts to shape the frequency characteristic or the tonal characteristic of the diffusion, or where it kind of centers at, by the size essentially of the diffusion, and or the diffusers. So that's the basic characteristic that you have there. Let's take a look at the early reflections and see if we got the right kind of tail. Now, one thing I could do here, if excuse me, is I can set the okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just pull down the reverb level off, so we just have early reflection.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
So I can lean it more that way.
Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong?
So I can kind of set a pattern here. And then
slow down, baby, take a moment.
What this does is it rolls up more high frequencies the farther away they become.
I can't hear what you're saying.
And I could set the length.
Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you.
So I can make the space a bit more intimate sounding by making it shorter, or I can make it...
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
To downright echoes.
Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're...
So I'm going to set a more intimate space here, and then lighten up a little bit on the...
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me.
Now, this sort of sets the stage for where the reverb exists. So now I can...
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe.
And I can deal with that in the tail settings.
I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong?
Right, so I can kind of set a space here. Now I can change the reverb time.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
And put it in a larger space, and then that would also kind of help to balance that out.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe.
Use the early reflection
I
level
can't
for
hear
immediacy.
What you're saying.
Use the reverb for distance.
Stop for a minute, come sit there with me.
Now, what I could do here is, what I have is a crossover point that goes between low reverb and mid reverb. And So I can skew the balance more towards low frequency reverb, below
Slow
560,
down, baby, take a moment and breathe.
or
I can't hear
to
what you're
reverb above
saying.
560.
Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you.
So I can skew it a little bit more mid-range and down heavy if I wanted to, make it a little bit warmer on the top. There's also a dampening frequency, which lowers
Slow down,
reverb time.
baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't
So it'll
hear what
dampen
you're
higher frequencies.
saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with
Or
me.
let them be open air.
I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared.
Right, so you have that a little bit. So let's hear this a little bit of this in the mix here.
Slow down, baby, take a moment
And hold on, I think I have a stray track somewhere along the way here from another.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't.
So you could hear like how you just get this real open richness and how much you can kind of play with it. Now, when we get into things that the warp is turned off for right now, what we can also do is we can also bring in a little bit of chorusing onto this.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and
Four different varieties.
I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong.
What this does is it creates some randomness or movement within the tail, the reverb tail. And so as you're kind of working this, you have the ability, let's just say you like set
Slow
different
down,
rates.
baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute.
And start to add in, some chorus. In this case, it's in particular subtle, or it's harder to hear because of how busy the vocal is. So this may or may not factor into something that you end up using based on that. There's also a warp mode. So if I enable warp here, what this does is it gives me a limiter with a ceiling. So this will prevent any clipping within the reverb itself. You have a knee control. You have an attack and release. This allows you to apply ducking to the reverb, so you can have the vocal.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong again? Oh yeah. And I'll find you again.
All right. So I'm making it pump and breathe very heavily. The basic idea, though, here is that you can duck the reverb.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe.
And, well, let me just kind of back out on the compression.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
Do a softer compression
Stop
here.
for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running?
And what this does is like a way of suppressing the reverb, essentially. when you're when the source is feeding into it. And then you could go in the opposite direction, which is like
slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
right. And so you could kind of play with this in terms of whether you're expanding or ducking essentially the reverb. There's also an overdrive that's built into this. So actually, let me just kind of zero this out here for a second. Kind of move that up. Let's see.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong?
And then you could set
again, oh yeah.
the crossover frequency where that's happening through and the amount of pass through. You can kind of dive through some of this stuff. There's also some here with
slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe.
Sometimes when you go lower bit, you get a more open reverb.
Stop for a minute, come sit
or you can get a more
me.
full frequency, you know, like a hi-fi kind of reverb. So this gives you the ability to kind of tone it down in terms of the way that you're working with it. You can also, when you get into all of these things, you get an overall trim for the warping that you're doing. And you can copy these settings here, which allows you or gives you the ability to paste them into another preset. So if you find something you like, I've just kind of butchered this example here, but I think you get the basic idea. And then you also have a noise gate that's attached onto the end of it. So you have a lot of ways that you can kind of use this whole
slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong? Again, oh yeah. And I'll find you again. Pretend, oh yeah. And I'll find you again.
You also can put some modulation on the filters. You can also put some modulation on the filters here that allows you to modulate that. So sometimes that can be kind of interesting, particularly if you do start doing notch filters or bandpass filters and things along those lines, as opposed to just sort of a warming output. So that just gives you the ability to kind of do some modulations and create some effects there. And then of course there is
slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe.
which is your infinite reverb. And you can also block the early reflections, which sometimes if they're up high may cause the level to be lower if your balance of them is higher relative to what you have at the reverb level. And then you can turn that off at any given point. Very cool feature, which is kind of cool. It's always nice to have that just like simple freeze feature. This is like a ridiculously, as you can see, in-depth reverb. If you're familiar with the Nimbus, you'll notice and be familiar with a lot of the features that have been added in to this. And just in showing some of the basic characteristics of it and all the detail and all the different things that you can do with it, it's like there's no way I can just do it justice here in any kind of short form video. But it's a ridiculously amazing sounding a reverb, and you could just feel like and see like how all the options there, how open you can make it, how rich you can make it, and all the different controls. So if you're a real tweaker in terms of reverb, this is an amazing plugin to get, and that is why it is the plugin of the week, Exponential Audio R4.